Hey y'all, welcome back to Mandy's Southern Stitching. Today we have a interesting project. It's beginner friendly and it's something you can do if in some my brain is not working today, guys. Fabric collections, you get panels, or maybe you see a pretty panel at a store and you buy it, but then you get home and you're like, what do I do with it? I don't want to put it in the quilt, but it's not really suitable for placemats or table runners. What do you do with those panels? Well, I have a solution for you. You can make wall hangings out of them that look like framed pictures. And this is something I love to do. It's hand quilting. You can hand quilt it, or you can also machine quilt it if you don't want to hand quilt it. But I find hand quilting really relaxing. And you can sit in front of the TV, or you can turn on a podcast, or you can listen to the radio, or you can sit out poolside like sometimes I do in the summer with my kids with one of these, because it's small enough on my lap, it's not going to be too hot, and just hand quilt while you're watching them swim. So I do these and I hang them up on a curtain rod in my kitchen or my dining room. And here is a summer one. I just fell in love with this panel. It has, kind of a barn. It's got animals and fruits and vegetables, and of course that classic red pickup. Very patriotic. I love the cow with the flag on it. It was just adorable. But I didn't want to put it in a quilt. And I was like, you know what? That'll look great on my wall. Like a wall hanging. And it's washable. And, I don't have to worry about dusting it too much. And and then the back I just put a coordinating fabric, or you can just put, a solid fabric or whatnot. And so I'm going to show you how to do one of these. Now we won't get it quilted today because I will be hand quilting it, and it does take a couple of weeks to get it done. But I will show you how to put on the borders and the two different options you have. And then, I'll show you that, you need to baste it. We'll talk about what types of batting you can use. Do you even need to use batting? Just answer a few questions and then give you some ideas on how to embellish it to make it look more unique. So, it started out with this one. And then, of course, I put a hanging sleeve on. Now, the very first one I did is probably the best, and it's the one I'm going to show last. That a lot of people in my family have said, I want that one. And I do have two more panels. I bought two more panels like that so that I can do some more. They're not going to look exactly the same because I can't find the border fabric, but they'll look similar. So we have that one. I did one for Halloween. I found this panel. It was very creepy. And I was like, I love spooky movies. So, of course, it's an old barn, haunted barn, with full moon, creepy trees. Let me pull it up here. The guy, shadowy figure inside the barn door there, and a bunch of creepy pumpkins and an old relic, rusted out tractor. Just gives you the whole spooky vibe. And I actually hand stitched this with a glow-in-the-dark embroidery thread. So it does glow in the dark, but it's very hard to see. I mean, I did double thread it, but it's still, I mean, but you know, if you've got some thicker embroidery thread that's glow in the dark, it'd probably show up better. And if your stitches were, you know, more robust, but mine aren't. So, and you know, I did a kind of a darker wood. I always get kind of a wood finish, something that looks modeled like wood, like a picture frame, or you can even do a solid brown, but I kind of get one with a little bit of texture so that, you know, it kind of looks like a wood frame. And that's what I did on this one. It has a hanging sleeve on the back. I just did a simple black backing on this. And as you can see, you don't see any stitches on either one of these on the back. That's because I initially backed it with a muslin. Just a real cheap muslin or just a white fabric, you know, white Kona cotton, and did the hand quilting. And then because you don't see any binding, it's bindingless, I did a self bind on it, which means I put the back on the front, stitched it all the way around, and just left a little section to turn it out. And then I turned it out, you know, kind of like you do with pillow and pillowcase, and then stitched it in and then sewn it back in. So that's how I did it, so that it looks clean on the back. But you don't have to. You could stitch it and then bind it, but I wanted the look of no binding, so I wanted it to look exactly like a picture frame. So that's what I did. So this is one of my favorites. I just love the creepiness of it. I love the eeriness. It hangs up from like mid-September to like almost Thanksgiving in my dining room. So love it. It's one of my favorites. And the third one. This one is a family favorite. Everybody loves it. We are an animal family. Like everybody in my family has pets, you know. And we're all big animal lovers. And this one's just awesome. So this one is Santa Claus visiting all the animals. As you can see, there's cats and dogs, bunches of them, all different kinds. And as you can see, I have mitered corners on this one to make it more like a frame. You can do the standard corners like are on the other two, because, you know, it's just a simple fabric. You really can't see it once it's hung up. It's not that noticeable. But I'm starting to do more mitered corners. Those two I was just in a hurry and didn't feel like watching the tutorial again to do it. And it does take some practice to get them right. These are not quite right, but they are covered up with some rickrack. So, and then I, of course, embellished it with some rickrack, some gold rickrack that I just hand stitched on the outside to make it look more like a more decorative picture frame. So you can see the mitered corners go diagonal here. And you see right there, there's just a little mess up, but you know what? It's fine. I don't care. And you really don't notice it when it's hanging up. Unless you're up there with a magnifying glass just inspecting the whole thing. And I did stitch it, hand stitch it with some gold thread. Now I didn't stitch everything, just things I wanted to accentuate. And another note on this is, like, you know, hand stitching and regular quilting, you know, you have to do, you have to have so many stitches per square inch, you know, like every 5 to 7 or 9, depending on the batting. You have to look at the batting instructions to find out. But these rarely get washed. If they do, they get hand washed and then hung up to dry. Because I don't want them to fade. I don't want them, especially this one with the Rit Rack, it'll just shred. So, you know, mostly they just get dusted off with a lint roller and maybe spot cleaned and then folded up, put away for until they're used for the next season. So, you know, just a note on that, because I know you're probably going to see on here, especially on this one, there's a lot of places where there's no stitches. There probably should be some, but I chose just to accentuate what I wanted to accentuate, because it kind of gives it a 3D feel and a 3D look when you stitch it, especially if you use really thick batting, which is what I use. I use a thick poly high loft batting on any like wall hanging, hand quilting projects, because I want the stitching to stand out and give it a kind of a 3D look. And I used a grunge that was gold flaked on the back just to give it an antique look, kind of like an old picture frame. And then of course a hanging sleeve, which I just did in the brown. I love this brown and I wish I could find more of it. I got this at a local quilt shop, and then I think I got all that they had. They just had a few yards of it, and I didn't save the selvage on it to find out what it was, but it looks like picture frame wood. It's got some modeling, some spots, and different colors, and it goes so well with every panel that you would want to make a picture frame out of. But I don't have any more of it, so I bought a different brown that has some texture to it for one that we will be doing, and I will be demonstrating in just a few moments. But just to give you some ideas of what to do with panels. These make great gifts to give to family and friends that really don't want a full quilt or have no use for a quilt. Or if you have quilty friends that like to hang up their quilts on the walls, these would be great. Especially, you know, you get a holiday panel or just a beautiful panel in general. I've seen a lot of floral ones, some ones with peacocks on them, you know, anything like that. And then just, you know, hand quilt it, or just do a simple all over design on it on your machine. I would probably leave the borders plain like I did on here. You know, I stitched the outside border, and of course the inside border is stitched. But I wouldn't do this border just so it would look more like a frame. But you can do that as well. There's lots of different options. So I'm going to show you the panel that we're going to be working on. It's going to be one that I'm going to try to sell at a local cat show coming up in September. It's similar. It's Santa and a kitty cat. I'll just show you here. Looks like he's on the roof. There's a chimney. And he's just talking to the kitty, like, what you doing on the top of the roof? Because it's a cat. And cats, I just like to be up here high. So, you know, I'm going to stitch this. I haven't decided what color thread I'm going to use. I may use multiple different colors to kind of blend in, or I may just use a silver or a gray, or, you know, probably not a white. I'm not sure. May do red, you know, just do a mixture of them, but we'll see. But I'm going to show you how to put the borders on, how to, we've already done a basting video, but I'll do basting again, just in case you want to see. And I'm going to back it with just some plain white or off-white muslin, or just a scrap of something that I have laying around that's big enough to fit it. And then I'll back it in black, more than likely. because it is going to look like a picture frame, and most frames have a black backing or something. But here is the, let's see if you can see, it's kind of mottled brown, just different shades of brown mottled together to make it kind of look like a wood frame look. This is going to be the border. I may use rickrack. I don't have anything other than gold because I don't usually, I mean, that was the first and only time I've ever used rickrack. It was on that other Christmas one. But, you know, if I get done and I see that it might look good with some rickrack, I might get some silver or, you know, something to match it, but more than likely not. Because I want it to be something that can be washed if it needs to be, and someone would throw it in the wash and rickrack would shred. So, but that's what we're going to do. And it's really beginner friendly. If you're just getting into quilting and you're you don't know how to free motion quilt on your sewing machine, or you find it intimidating, or you're just looking like something to do with your hands while you're sitting watching TV or something for stress relief, because it really is, you get into a meditative state when you're hand sewing. At least I do. And I've heard a lot of other people do. And it just kind of relaxes you. I love to sit and bind and watch TV. So it could be good, especially on these hot summer days when you're sitting in the air conditioning in the evening, or during the hottest part of the day. It's also good for the colder months when you just put that on your lap and you've got a little extra warmth. So I'm going to show you the batting I use. Now, generally, I use 80-20 on my regular quilts. 80% cotton, 20% polyester. I find that, so I got a piece here. Yes, I do. I find it to be soft. It's light. It's airy. It breathes. So you're not like smothering under it. I use that for most quilts. But for wall hangings and something where I really want the stitching to stand out, I go for a higher loft. And generally you get a higher loft with polyester. And I do 100% polyester. Now, it's not something that you want to put in anything you're going to use to put pots and pans on, like table runners, hot pads, and all that stuff. So, just to know, because it will melt and then you will damage your pieces. But if it's just something that's going to go on the wall, it's not got to be washed that much, it's, you know, it's not going to be used to cover you in any way, then go with a 100% polyester. It's really cheap. I think I bought this whole roll for like $75. I mean, there was a lot on this roll, and I'm almost used it all. So, but it's higher loft, as you can see. Right here, you see how thick it is compared to this, where it's more like just a little thicker than fabric, you know. This has got some heft to it. There. So, and it does not breathe. I did use this on my very first quilt I ever made, and I'll show y'all in another video when I do some kind of flashbacks to some old projects that I've done. Very first quilt I made completely by hand. I mean, completely. I hand stitched every block. It was Pins and Paws by Missouri Star Quilt Company. And I hand stitched every block because I didn't even have a sewing machine. But I didn't want to go invest in a sewing machine if for some reason I didn't like quilting. Because then I'd be stuck with a sewing machine. And I don't do clothes. I don't do alterations other than anything I can do by hand on my clothes. So, you know, I didn't want to go spend the money on a sewing machine if I wasn't going to like it. So I was like, well, let me just hand stitch everything. And then I stitched it all together. And then I hand quilted it. And I bought this batting. It's 100% polyester. And I was like, well, you know, it was cheap. and I was like, you know, there's enough on that roll if, you know, I can use it for wall hangings, kids can use it for crafts, we can use it to decorate for Christmas, it could be snow, you know. That's how I justified the $75 purchase for this. I was like, and I can also just sell it to somebody at a quilt shop or something and let them give it away or something to somebody or someone, or know someone who is a quilter if I didn't like quilting. But turns out, got the quilting bug. The rest is history. Anyway, I put this in it and it doesn't shrink, which is good, but it doesn't breathe either. And I would lay under that quilt and just sweat. Especially in the summertime. It just does not breathe. And so I wouldn't recommend using this in baby quilts, especially because it's not flame retardant and I mean, it'll melt on them if for some reason there's a fire or something. So I wouldn't recommend this for bedding, but you know, wall hangings, quilts that you're just going to stick on the back of your couch, pillows, like pillow forms, like to make pillowcase covers for your pillows or decorative pillows, quilted pillows, anything like that, bags, I'd use this. It's, you know, thick and stuff, but I wouldn't recommend it for anything you're going to sleep under and that's going to be washed a lot. Because you can't wash it in high heat because some dryers would melt this. So, just a little discussion on batting and what would be best. You could use 80-20 for these, but the stitching's not going to show up if you're hand stitching. But you can use what you have. And you can even use scraps and just piece them together. But because this is going to be like hanging on a wall, I wouldn't want anything that you might be able to see seams in if you're going to piece batting together. That's just my opinion, but I'm not a perfect quilter and I obviously have flaws in my work and, you know, I let it go. So, but yeah. So we're going to get started here in a little bit. I'm going to start by cutting up the panel. And not cutting it up, but just trimming it up so that the selvages are off of it. It's an even size that I want to work with. And then I'm going to cut strips for my border. And I'll show you that. And then I will start doing the mitering on it. I am not an expert at mitering, so I'm going to have to watch my YouTube videos again that I'm going to link for people who do mitering and have good videos for it. And then we will baste it and I'll show you just how to get started on the stitching. So, but yeah, I think this will be something that, you know, it's a great gift. It's just a great project to work on, to build your skills. If you ever wanted to try hand quilting but didn't know where to start, don't want to quilt a whole quilt, start with a panel. So, all right, guys, I'll be right back. All right, guys, so we're back. I've got the panel sprayed with Best Press, pressed out, got most of the wrinkles out of it, and I'm going to show you how I trim it. And what I've done is just kind of folded it in half, and I'm just going to trim most of this white off so that it doesn't show when I sew it's not in the seam allowance. It's out away from the seam allowance so that, you know, you don't have white gaps when you're sewing to show up on your finished product. So what I do is I just kind of fold it in half, kind of line it up on the straight both ways, and then I just take my ruler and kind of go on a straight up and down. And these aren't printed straight on the thing sometimes, so we're going to go about a quarter of an inch in. It's a little bit wonky, but do that. I'm going to go a 1/2 inch in. Like I said, it's not straight. It's not printed straight on the bolt. So just get that much off on one side. Turn it and do the other side the same way. Just line it up here like this. Okay. We gotta make sure we don't cut the cat's tail off, which we shouldn't. And I'm just gonna go on this 19-inch line here. That should be plenty. We'll come in a little further. I don't want to catch the cat's tail in the allowance. He's pretty close on that side. So this one, there's still a little bit white left on it, but it will be in the seam allowance. So cut that off. All right, and now turn it this way and just kind of fold it. Make sure everything's straight and lined up, and I just fold it sandwich style here and just kind of line everything up to the best of my abilities. It's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. As long as it's not too wonky, it'll be just fine. It'll be a straight edge. So I have all 4 of the top and bottom edges together. Like I said, we line up as best we can on these lines. And there's not much to chop off here. I mean, there's not nothing that will get chopped off that we don't want chopped off. And then we line it up. On the 1/2 mark here. And we'll go for it. Just like that. And now we have it trimmed up to our liking. See here. You can see no selvages or very minimal selvage all the way around. Okay, so that's how we trim it up. Now I'm just going to lay it over here while I cut some borders. And I generally do like a 5 to 6 inch border on my framing. You know, you just do what you think looks best. You can always take your panel like this. Just like the way. You can lay your panel out like this. And then see how much you want for the border. Just do it like this. What would look good to you? And it's all personal preference. And you know, also consider how much border fabric you have, because you don't want to cut and then not have enough for the whole thing. So I've got almost 2 yards of this, so we're good on just about any length. So there's a wider border option if If you want it really wide, that's about, it's almost 8 inches there. And I think that's too wide. But this right here would be, you know, 4 inches probably. Yeah, it's about 4 and a half. So you would cut like a 5, and then you get like a 4 1/4, 4 and a half, which I think looks good. You don't want too much too, because you got to consider your batting. If you're not going to stitch in this, then you don't want it too wide. You know, you want about 4 to 5 inches would be ideal. But you know, if you're going to stitch this, if you're going to quilt the whole thing, then I would, then you can get it as wide as you want. So I'm going to do about 5-inch strips. I think will be the best. So and let me just measure real quick to see how many strips I need. So it's approximately 32 inches long, by 40 inches wide. 41. So I'm going to do 5 strips. Actually, I may cut a little more off of one side of this, because I want just to be able to use one piece for each one. It's not going to work. I'll have to connect them in the middle, and that won't look right. So I'm probably going to do some trimming on that to get it to where we can do with the fabric, because this fabric is, take the selvage off, it's 13 inches right there. So take an inch off for selvage, make it 12. Plus 12. Let's see how wide this is. I mean, you can also just cut it lengthwise, and I may have to. Let's see. Yeah, this is 44 inches with the selvages on it. So yeah, I'm going to do a little more trimming on this. To make it a little smaller width-wise, so that I can do a mitered border on it. I'm not going to be able to do a mitered border with those strips. So let's see what we can cut off. I can't cut any more on that side, so we could probably take some of the bag off on this side. And that's probably what I'm going to do. So I'm probably going to take at least 2 inches off on the side. It will, the moon right there, but I'm not really too concerned about that moon getting caught in this and being cut off. But I don't want any more of that cap to get cut off, because that's a focal point that I want to accentuate. And so we will do this. So go ahead and do that. And that's why you always kind of just measure things, because if I had not measured that, we would not have known, and then I would have tried to do miter corners, and I would be in a mess. And I would probably end up having to do regular corners. And we may still have to, but it is what it is. But I want to try to do miter corners just because I love miter corners. So I'm going to cut 2 inches off this side here. But we'll do 1 3/4, because I want to leave a little bit for the moon. That way I'm not cutting off too much of the moon. See, we just cut off some of the Santa's bag. Not too concerned about Santa's bag. Now I'm going to remeasure. We're at 39, which gives us a little more wiggle room when it comes to the mitered borders. And I may just cut 4-inch borders too, which will help, because you have to have some extra fabric on either end when you do the mitered borders, and that'll give me a little more wiggle room. I don't want to do less than 4 because then it's going to look kind of wonky and it won't look like a picture frame that I'm going for. So we're going to do 4-inch borders, and I'm going to go ahead and start cutting those. So I'm going to pull my fabric here. Let's see if I've already got a straight edge on this. I think I've already used some of it. Yeah. This on this side. This is Marbles by Moda. So basic. It's brown. Suction cups back on. So we're going to cut some 4-inch borders. That'll give me about 3 3/4 inch with the seam allowance. 3.5, which is still a good size. I mean, 3.5 is about that much right there. So about that much. I'll show you here. 3.5 would be not that much. I mean, that's finished, but you know, I'm going to do 4 inches, so that's still a decent border. This is reality of quilting. Things don't always come out the way that you want them to. So, you know, it's just how things go, and sometimes you have to make do. And I don't want to cut off too much of that panel because it's pretty, but I also don't want to piece my borders. And I could cut length of fabric, I've got plenty of it, but I also want to use this for other projects and border other panels. And cutting it lengthwise would mess up my intentions for it. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to cut 4 strips is all I'll need now. And we'll come back and I will show you how to do some mitered corners. So see y'all in a little bit. All right, guys, we are done piecing together our framed panel. Now I had to do some revisions, and I'll explain. You see the seams here. I had to actually cut 4 more strips because I did my quilt math wrong in my head. I'm not good at quilt math. But the YouTube video, which I'll link in here on how to do mitered corners, had me to do 5 extra inches on each side for each of the 4 sides. You know, 4 here, 5 here, 5 here. So you get that, you got enough to do the mitered corners. And they came out pretty good. There's a little bit of white thread showing, which I'm not really a fan of, but I'm not a big stickler for that. I don't buy a lot of colored threads. I just use my white piece thread. And there's a small tuck here. And I think on this side there's a small tuck. But other than that, I mean, it looks pretty dang good for about only the 3rd time I've ever done a mitered corner on a quilt top. So, but it looks pretty dang good. So I'm going to iron it back out because it kind of got wrinkled up as I was sewing it, and get it pressed really good. And then I'm going to baste it, and then I will bring you guys back in my living room, and we will sit and I'll show you how to get started on the hand quilting process if that's what you want to do. Like I said, you could machine quilt the whole thing, you know, or just the inside of it, you know, whatever you allow, but or whatever you want, whatever seems good to you. But I'm going to just hand quilt and kind of outline all the things. Like I said, I use these as just wall hangings. They don't get washed a lot, so they don't have to be they don't have to be quilted to death. This is the white 100% poly batting, and this gives you more. I think it's like almost 8 inches you can go on this poly batting between stitches, you know, but or 4 or 5. I can't remember. But it's a lot. So that way, you know, even if I do have to throw it in the wash, I usually just wash it on cold and let them hang dry, or I just tumble them, no heat in my dryer, and that way they don't wrinkle up. And I got this remnant of Kona Snow for the backing. Sometimes I use muslin, and I can't find my muslin. I have a big old 10-15 yard thing of muslin, but I can't find it. It's in here somewhere, but I was not going to dig through everything today. So, you know how it is. But, so I'm going to get this together, and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you how to get started. I am going to use this cool gray, I believe, quilting thread. I have another spool up top because I have used most of this on my long arm the other day when I was quilting a queen size quilt. So, but I do have an extra one, and then I have a giant spool for my long arm that if I do need it. But I'm thinking just, you know, going around the edges of him. I may on the middle do some red so that, you know, it doesn't not blend well. I don't have a lot of brown, I don't have a lot of gold, so I'm thinking just kind of keeping it consistent with just one color thread will probably be the best. Like I said, if you are good at embroidery, or you have a lot of embroidery floss that's really thick, or just a lower weight thread, like a 10 or 12 weight, because that's a thicker thread, that would be great on this for hand quilting. But I don't do a lot of hand quilting anymore. I used to, the first few quilts I ever did were all hand quilted. They took months. This one's probably going to take me a good month to finish. And I'll post an update on it. But I got out of it, one, because my hands were starting to get, from rheumatoid arthritis, if I do it too much, then I'm in pain. But also just the time factor, that I wanted to get more quilts done, especially if I'm gifting to some people, or just be able to get through a project without having it sit there for a few months. Like some of them, I have 2 quilts over here that I've been working on for over a year. Still haven't got them done. I haven't got them pieced, but they are kind of long-term projects. And I wanted more projects I could get done quicker. And we're all that way. You know, sometimes you need a quick and easy finish. And these can be that, especially if you machine quilt them. But even hand quilting it, you could probably, if you devoted about an hour a day, you could probably get it done in 2 or 3 weeks. Don't lick my stuff. Dog's in here. Don't lick the batting. You need to go in there. Yes, you're just rotten. So you go, rotten puppy. You want to say hi? Do you want to say hi? Let's say hi. Say hi, puppy. This is Dolly. Many of y'all have seen her on some of my other videos. She is our rescue doodle. And some days we think she only has 2 brain cells. And then she burns them out. And then she has none. But she may not be the brightest crayon in the box. But she certainly is the most sweetest and most loving crayon in the box. Because
I have never seen a dog that just wubs wub like this one does. Yes. So her just wubs wub. So, let me get this basted before she eats my polybatting, because she kind of loves polyfill. It's not healthy for her, but she'll sneak it if she can. And that's what she's trying to do. Yes. You are just rotten. Yes, you are.
Alright, guys. So I will see y'all. I'll see y'all in a little bit. Welcome back, guys. Well, we got it basted. This was probably the quickest, easiest baste because it's such a small thing. So, almost didn't have enough of this remnant. It's kind of barely at the edges on some, but it'll be alright because I'm going to basically do a reverse, a seamless bind on it by putting the backing fabric on top of this and flipping it over, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. But I have it all the way basted, and this is a digitally printed panel, and just an FYI, just a helpful tip, make sure you have really sharp basting pins. I bought a bunch of different brands off of Amazon because I couldn't remember, and the ones I got at Hobby Lobby were actually the better ones. But the ones off of Amazon, some of them are really dull, and you know, trying to poke through this digitally printed thing, it scratches it and can, you know, leave like white scratch marks on it. So, and you don't want that. So make sure you're using the sharpest pins you have. Or you could spray baste. I don't like spray baste because I don't like the smell, and then it gets over everything because I don't really have a clean place outside. I live under a bunch of trees, and there's dirt, and I have dogs, so everything's just dirty. So I don't really have a place outside to baste. And so, you know, I don't like the smell of that stuff. And I've spray basted one time, and I got it all over my cutting table, and it was just a mess. So I'm not a fan of it. So I always pin baste. But you could even use fusible batting too, if you want. That's at least one side fusible. So I'm fixing to show you what I do to hand quilt. So what you need, and you don't need a lot of stuff. You just need a needle threader if you're having trouble seeing my eyes, but I always buy big-eyed needles. They're, I think, called John James or something. And some thread and some scissors. And a needle minder if you need something to keep a track of your needle. And I have all of that in here. As you can see, I have a lot of thread. Because when I bind, this is basically my binding hand sewing case. And this came in a Christmas box from Missouri Star. You know, they do the Christmas advent calendars, and this was in one, I think, 2 years ago. But you know, got my scissors. I've got some extra basting pins. I got a needle minder. I got glue. I've even got a seam ripper. So, and guess what? My needles aren't in here. Let me see if I've got one on this needle minder. If not, I'm gonna have to go upstairs and get some. Got one. I do have a little green thing that has needles on it, but luckily I kept one on my needle minder too. So I have a little green tube that I keep all my needles in, so my dog can't eat them because she eats everything. She's over here trying to eat this right now. So back to our sewing. Get you some thread, and I do about the length of my arm, from my fingertips to my shoulder. And I do that twice. That is about as big as I will go. You don't want a whole bunch of thread, because if it does get tangled up, then you either have to unsew or you have to, you know, it can be a bother. So let me see if I can get this in this. And make sure you have your glasses on if you need them to be able to see your thread, your needle. So, you know, some people
I watched some videos on how to do a quilter's knot by just kind of rubbing these two together. I can't do that. It's not very consistent for me. So I just kind of knot my threads together. Twice. As close together or on top of each other. Like that. Like a double knot. That way it won't come all the way through all the layers. And then I move my stuff out of the way. Like this. So I got my thread. And I just pick a place to start. Now, you know, most people say start in the center and then move out. But this is completely basted and it's pretty secure, so I could start anywhere. So I'm just going to start, I think I'm going to start, let's see where you can see, probably right here on Santa's coat, like right here. And I just go around the outside edge and kind of outline, stand. Outline the coat. I just got it off. That's why you don't want to lock thread, because you will get it caught up. Now you can do that and start it. I want to just pull this completely through for right now. No, it won't because of the double knot. But you just pull it through till the knot comes through, and then you can trim this off. Or since this is going to be hidden on the back, you can just start from the back and pull to the front. Which is what I usually do, just so I don't have to worry about trimming threads on the front. Because I'm really bad about leaving them. Actually, I noticed on some of those panels I was showing you guys today, and I just made a mess. That I was showing you guys today that there was a lot of threads that I did not trim. I missed. So, you know, that's probably my biggest weakness, besides not sewing a straight line and getting like holes in my quilts from seam slipping, is I don't trim threads. And you just remove, I'm just gonna put them on the outside here. And remove these pins as they are in your way. Oh, that one just came completely in. Daddy's trying to call you on the 40. Can you go upstairs and get it? So, what I'll do is I'll start from that back. That came out when I was pulling. Now once you get started, it's easy. It's just getting started can be a little frustrating sometimes. So, you know, you just pull through and just pull it till it comes to the, you know, it's taut but not coming through. And then, you know, my stitches are pretty big. I'm a big stitcher. My grandmother, when she hand quilted, had the tiniest stitches. But I can't do that. And people says, oh, it's your needle size and all this. And I've used all different sizes of needles, different types of needles, and my stitches are all the same. So I just try to make them as kind of even as possible so that they look neat. And I just go pull through. You know, you can do more than one pull, but because this poly batting is pretty thick and my hands are still pretty painful, just doing it at a time. And I just kind of outline Santa's coat here with this thread. And I pull it tight so that it's, you know, I use a double thread, that way it's thicker and it gives it more poof, plus you can see the stitches. Now if you don't want to see the stitches, use a single thread. That's fine too. But
But that's what you do. And you just keep going until you run out of thread. And then once you get close to the end, you know, pull it through, knot it off, trim it, and then just start where you ended. And I just kind of poke my needle in right here when I'm done, so I have a stopping place, and then fold this up, and then, you know, I'm ready to start again next time. But that's how you do it. I'm going to show you what little stitches I made. You can see them there. And I will show more progress on my channel later on. But that's, you know, something you can do just sitting watching TV. I usually put a good movie on or a TV show, stitch for 30 minutes or so. It's really relaxing. It helps you kind of clear your head because it's repetitive and it just, you can zen out on it. But I hope you enjoyed this idea to do with panels. And I'll post some pictures of the ones I hang up so it gives you a better idea of, you know, what you can do with them. They make great gifts too. So, well, remember to like and subscribe. I enjoy doing these videos for you guys. If y'all have any ideas of what different things you want to see, post it in the comments. And see you later. Bye, y'all.